would you do if someone you cared about was hurt by their own boyfriend? Would you call the cops? Confront him face to face? Well, I had another idea. He put his hands on my friend, and in less than 24 hours, I destroyed his entire future without throwing a single punch. If you've ever wanted to see karma come crashing down on someone who desperately deserved it, hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around, because this is one of the most satisfying revenge stories you'll hear today. This story takes place back in the before times, when the internet was still young, and I was just a broke kid in junior college. I had just moved in with my girlfriend, let's call her Lucy, so we could save on rent. Life was simple. Classes, cheap takeout, late-night study sessions. You get the picture. One night, Lucy told me she'd invited a classmate over for a game night. I thought, cool, more the merrier. We invited a few friends, shuffled a deck of cards, and stocked up on sodas. Turns out, Lucy's friend was someone I actually knew. Sarah, from high school. We weren't close, but we clicked. That night was a blast. Laughter, card games, friendly. Trash talk. Sarah fit right in, and from then on, she became a regular guest. Sometimes she'd come alone, sometimes with her boyfriend. Let's call him Jay. And let me tell you, Jay was different. Where everyone else laughed, joked, and bonded, Jay sat in silence, stiff, cold, like he hated every second of being there. His eyes darted around like he was calculating an escape route. You know when someone just kills the vibe the moment they walk in? That was Jay. Still, out of courtesy, we let him tag along. But honestly, he came maybe 2 or 3 times before. He found excuses to avoid us. None of us minded. One night, a few weeks later, my phone buzzed. It was Lucy. She whispered, "Sarah's on her way. She's crying." When Sarah arrived, she looked broken. Eyes red, face pale, body trembling. She collapsed onto our couch, hugging a pillow like it was the only thing holding her together. Through sobs, she explained. Jay had been accusing her of cheating, claiming she was too close to us. She didn't even know if he thought she was cheating with me, with Lucy, or with both of us. The accusation was ridiculous. But that wasn't the worst part. When Sarah tried to walk past him to leave, he shoved her, hard. She tripped over a coffee table, slamming onto her lower back. Lucy later told me she'd seen the bruise, dark, ugly, stretching across her side. Now, Sarah swore it was the first time he'd ever lost control. She wanted to believe it was an accident. But me, my blood was boiling. I'm not a violent guy. I'm big, sure. People usually assume I've been in fights, but I haven't. Still, my fists clenched, my jaw tightened. My chest burned with one thought. Nobody hurts my friends. I wanted to make him pay. Not with fists, with something that would cut deeper. Here's where luck, or maybe fate, stepped in. At the time, I worked at the administration building of the college. Student employee, low pay, boring tasks, but one crucial perk. I had access to every student's records, class schedules, fees, enrollment, and as fate would have it, we were just days away from the final deadline to add or drop classes. After that day, changes were locked. I stared at the screen. Jay's name pulled up on my monitor. His schedule, his ID number, every little detail I needed. That's when the idea clicked. If he wanted to mess with Sarah, I was about to mess with something far more important. His future. On the very last day to make changes, I walked into work with a pit in my stomach, but also a spark of determination. Back then, class changes weren't done online. You had to use dedicated enrollment, phones connected directly to the system. I picked up one of those beige plastic receivers, heart pounding so loud, I swore the people around me could hear it. With steady fingers, I punched in Jay's student ID. The menu crackled in my ear. Welcome to the student enrollment system. First, I dropped every single one of his classes. 1. Bye. 1. Click, click, click. His entire semester gone. Then, just to twist the knife, I went through and added every course I could find that had additional fees. Lab fees, tech fees, equipment, rentals. I stacked them all on his record like bricks. Here's the kicker. At our school, if you owed a debt, you couldn't access transcripts or register for future terms. And Jay? He was a foreign student. His visa required him to stay enrolled full-time. Without classes. Well, let's just say his days in the US were numbered. I hung up, palms sweaty, adrenaline surging. For the first time that night, I smiled. The fallout came faster than I expected. Sarah told us later that week that Jay had shown up to their shared English class. But when roll was called, something was off. The professor frowned, counted heads, then reread the roster. And guess who wasn't on it? Jay. He tried to argue, claiming he was enrolled, insisting there was a mistake. But the roster was the official list. No Jay. No seat. He had to stand there, humiliated, as the professor told him to leave. Sarah said she never saw him in that class again. In fact, she barely saw him at all after that. I never checked his file again, for fear of being caught. But weeks later, curiosity got the better of me. I peeked. All those fee-heavy classes I dumped on him, gone. But no new classes had been added. Nothing. No enrollment. No schedule. No future at that college. I can't say for sure if he got deported, but I do know one thing. He vanished from Sarah's life. And for her, that was enough. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I went too far. If maybe, just maybe, I crossed a Yao line. But then I remember the bruise on Sarah's back, the way her voice cracked when she told us what he called her, and I know one thing for certain. He deserved worse than what he got. Mess with me if you want, but mess with my friends. You'll regret it. At the end of the day, justice doesn't always come from the system. Sometimes it comes from the people who care enough to make it happen. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and tell me in the comments. What's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen or experienced? And of course, subscribe for more stories that prove karma always finds its way.